Living conditions in the new part of the maze are a great improvement on the old hutted compounds, and the majority of the prisoners in the H blocks have always conformed to the prison rules.
We all got our postings to whatever station we were going to, and the first thing I was told was, well, anything you've learned, forget it. This is the maze you're in, and it works its own unique way.
It's a formidable structure. It's like a fortress, and you go through this array of concrete and wire and barbed wire and fences and security controls. That is only to get in through the front wall and in through the front gate.
Brandon Bick McFarland, provisional IRA, received a life sentence for a 1975 bomb attack that killed 6 Protestants. In London, the Labour government wanted to take the politics out of the prison. On March the 1st, 1976, special category status was withdrawn. From now on, everyone convicted of terrorist offences would be regarded as an ordinary criminal. The prison regime was transformed overnight.
They had us locked up, and they had control, and they loved it. Hughes 704, that was my number, Hughes 704. That's how they flaunted it. They gave me a number, and I wasn't Brenton Hughes anymore.
The reality is that they weren't ordinary prisoners. The reality is these are people who are in because of a cause. Now, you can say that's political, you can say it's terrorism, you can say it's patriotism. Depends which side of the fence you're looking from. They were trying to run it like a proper British prison, when it wasn't a proper British prison.
The flashpoint came in late 1976 when Paddy Quinn, an IRA prisoner, was ordered to put on a prison uniform. He refused. It was the beginning of what became known as the blanket protest.
They told me to strip naked and give me a towel, put the towel around me, marched me to the cell, and was on the blanket.
There is nothing as degrading as to strip a person, male or female, and leave them there. I don't even have to beat them. Just look at them and degrade them with your eyes. These people became perfectionists at this.
Prisoners refusing to wear a uniform forfeited all privileges and were locked in their cells 24 hours a day, wearing only their prison blanket.
You had no stimulation, no magazines, books, papers, radio, exercise, fresh air, nothing, absolutely nothing. Complete and total isolation. I have to be perfectly honest, see, for the first 3 or 4 weeks, it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I didn't know if I was going to survive it.
There was always a panic bell in the cell, right? And men came to breaking point and they broke and hit the bell. And you'd have heard the prison guards, 2 or 3 coming down, singing, whistling. Another one's bit the dust, another one's bit the dust. And they brought this uniform down. Initially, that man got abuse from his comrades until after a period it began to register in most people that he could be next.
Show your solidarity with the men in H block only dressed in a blanket by joining this parade.
By 1978, the blanket protest was no nearer to victory. But the government had also failed to remove the politics from the H blocks.
They could not criminalise us. There was going to be a resistance to this. I think they seriously underestimated the resistance that was going to come.
By the late 70s, life in many Loyalist and Republican areas was dominated by the maze. For prisoners' families, the weekly visit became a form of pilgrimage. Marion Jameson was 17 with a baby daughter when her husband was convicted of the attempted murder of 2 Republicans.
For me, it was for better, for worse, and this was worse. He got 20 years, and it just seemed like a lifetime. I remember him saying he didn't expect me to wait, and I said, look, I've already made the decision. I'm going to be waiting, I'll be visiting, and I don't want it ever mentioned again.
Almost every family had a member, a cousin, a brother, a husband in Long Cache, so it was a way of life for us.
Morgan Macaulay's brother, Mickey Devine, a Republican, was serving 12 years for arms offences.
It wasn't a nice place to bring children, and I didn't like having to bring her down there, but it was the only way that she was going to see her dad, and to go through the search as well, when even they would search her. They would even have felt the nappy and checked that you weren't trying to smuggle things in.
Many visits had an ulterior motive: smuggling. There was a two-way traffic in messages written on cigarette papers, as well as more threatening objects.
Platform shoes, which would have been the height of fashion in the 70s, provided prisoners and their visitors with areas to conceal more sinister items.
The blanket protesters realized the value of contact with the outside. To take visits, they had to put on the prison uniform, but first they would modify their trousers.
All the trousers, the uniforms that they wore, were all ripped at the rear end, so that for access.
The woman would have passed it across the table quickly. The man would have grabbed, the prisoner would have grabbed it and sat between his legs like that, and eventually just work it up the back passage.
I remember one visit. It was a girl from Belfast. She had a radio for me. The radio was a little medicine bottle and a crystal inside it. They used to do miniature Republican uses for us. Didn't she have this wrapped around the radio? And the thing ended up, it was about that size, and I had to take this back on the visit. The visit wasn't too bad, but getting it back out again was excruciating, to say the least.
The prison authorities responded with extreme search methods.
The mirror search was because prisoners were coming back from visits with stuff up the rectum. I say, I'm not sticking my finger up somebody's ass, put it that way.
We were asked to stand over a mirror and squat.
They tell you, take your towel off, take your towel over the mirror, you wouldn't go over it. There'd be about maybe 4 screws there. Grab a hold to you, drag you over the mirror.
A prison officer would have to put a knee in behind his knee and exert a pressure down.
A member of staff shone the torch onto the mirror and could see. We called that man the stargazer, for obvious reasons.
Very humiliating for me as a person. I'm sure it was probably a lot more humiliating for them. But the reality is, the environment that we lived in, we existed in, anything could be brought in.
The British government has consistently refuted allegations of prisoners being assaulted by warders in H blocks. But intimate body searching is carried out for security reasons.
Antagonism between prison officers and protesting prisoners escalated.
Going down a wing with 50 people who all had the potential to kill you is not an easy job.
I've seen staff got a face full of boiling tea from one of these prisoners, because we used to feed these prisoners. We used to go to the door, give it to them, give them the mug of tea, and they would throw it in your face. Right, that's no problem. That prisoner had to be restrained and put into the cell block. If that's the case, yes, we would go in and restrain that prisoner. What we used was tactics that we were taught to use. It was not brutality.
If I had had a weapon in Long Cash at that period, I would have no problem shooting these people.